See, here in this part of Texas, our nectar flow is over. There's nothing now through until September. And so if we want to build any hives, we have to feed them.
What is it exactly you're doing with this one here, Mark?
So it's a month-old nuke. I've just put the top on a week ago, and I want to see how the bees are doing up top here. Since the nectar flow has slowed down and there's not a lot of bees, I'm going to have to look after these bees. So if we look at this frame, you will see there's a lot of nectar in there, which is really nice to see. That's good news. So they're bringing in from somewhere, but they have to draw these other frames because there's no comb on them. And there's 3 frames that are pretty much nothing on them. And let's see what this last frame is like. So this has got some honey on this side, and this side just a little bit honey but nectar. So they are drawing the comb, which is, oh, I can see here nicely they're drawing the comb. See, they started to draw the comb on there.
Nice. So
in order to draw the comb, they need to have a nectar ink flow, which we really don't have now. So I have to artificially feed these guys to make sure that they're going to draw all 10 frames out before we get close to the end of the year. So we're keeping it in the 5-frame configuration because I've learnt over time they will build a double-decker 5-frame like this faster than they will build a 10-frame. So we'll leave them in here until they're finished building the 10 frames out, and then we'll convert them into a standard 10-frame Langstroth hive. So here's a bottle feeder. For these guys I use bottle feeders because I can see the state of their food consumption without having to open the hive. And every time I open the hive, I set them back several days. So for my nukes, I don't use frame feeders. I will only use these bottles at the top.
can you tell me what your mix is?
So essentially it's a 1-to-1 mix, but we've got some essential oils added in here. One to stimulate feeding, one to help them keep the varroa mites down if there are any. I've also got some lipids in here and some honey in here. So it's a good mix for them. So there it is. The lid on top there is to keep the light out, and also so it's not too visible to the other bees in the area. And it also will keep it cooler.
So your goal with this set, you have a double 5 here, here, and here, and you're basically doing the same thing with all 3. And that's checking to see the how much they built, and then adding a little bit of feed.
Yes, so they all 3 were splits that were done a month ago, and we're busy looking to see what the condition of them are. Now, if they have built the comb out on the top, I won't be feeding them. But if they haven't built the comb out, I will feed to stimulate the comb building.
And where did these splits come from?
These splits come from a hive in the other side of the apiary. They are feral bees that I split from, locally mated, and usually good producers.
Feral, locally mated in South Texas scares a lot of people. Most of your hives tend to be fairly well behaved, with just a little bit of aggravation here and there, but nothing that seems too crazy. You do have one hive tonight that we know of that may be a little testy. Hopefully once you get them open and into a regular box, they'll settle down.
Yes, and the reason why they're testy is they're in a swarm trap. It is hot in that swarm trap. They've run out of space, and so these guys haven't done so well. This is an old frame that I took out of a box. I was going to recycle it, but I needed some drawn comb, so they got it. They've added some nectar in here, but there is no real movement on this one, so it really has to be fed to try and stimulate them.
So the other 4 frames there are mostly empty?
They're all empty. So going back to the swarm trap bees, they have, except for the last 2 times that I've been out here, they have been very docile. In fact, they're on top of a water reservoir that I use to feed the bees water in this area, because the stream is dried up. And they're quite comfortable in the past for me to open the lid, pour the water in right up underneath their entrance, and they've always left me alone. Except for the last 2 times we came, but then it's been really hot and the bees have been predominantly outside. The nectar flow is slowed down, and they are really protective of what they've got, so I anticipate them to be very protective. But then again, for these bees, the later on in the evening you work with them, the more calm they are, which is why I do most of my bee work in the late afternoon, early evening.
And number 3 of your nucs here, your splits.
When I look in the box, I'm looking for any beetles, any diseased bees. They all look healthy, very healthy.
And just in case your queen decided to get up on that lid.
That's right. And they don't seem to have much action up here either. No. So some of you might be wondering, here's a frame that came out of a hive. The wax moth started to chew out. So what I did is I lifted up the wax moth silk and cocoons, etc., out of this, froze it, and I'm now reusing it. And these bees will rework this comb and repair it. So you don't always have to throw away a comb totally if it gets taken by moths. You can rework it again.
So all 3 of your nucs here basically were in the same condition.
Yeah, the first one was stronger, a lot stronger, because it's really got 2 frames of nectar on the top. See, here in this part of Texas, our nectar flow is over. There's nothing now through until September. And so if we want to build any hives, we have to feed them.
If you enjoyed this beekeeping episode with Mr. Mark, leave a comment down below. Let me know and let Mark know how much you appreciate him. I believe everyone has a story and every story counts. Thank you so much for being a part of my story and letting me be a part of yours. I'll talk to you soon.